Larry Greenfield, columnist, brilliant, mastermind, conservative leader. You were recently in Turkey, right?
I was in Turkey, my first time in Istanbul, for 8 days, and I had a chance to visit with a range of business leaders, cultural leaders, religious leaders, and I'm surprised by what happened 2 or 3 weeks after I left. I didn't start the riots and the problems over there.
That's not what we heard.
So I'm not responsible for it, but I was surprised by it. I saw in Istanbul that was thriving. I saw a range of views and voices. I have concerns about the government of Turkey, but they're a NATO ally. They're Western. Their economy is growing. And I thought they could be a potential model for a Muslim majority country that was pro-West. Maybe the riots in the streets, the protests, are a sign of potential freedom. Maybe people are expressing their voices and views. I think that the environmentalists who were upset that, quote, some trees were being cut down, they were actually being moved, maybe their protest was taken over by elements which range from Democrats, small d, to communists and foreign forces. It's not clear to me exactly who were the rioters and protesters throughout Turkey.
Don't you see that this seems like something that's happening everywhere, though, even in Syria, with John McCain trying to say that how do we know who the good guys and the bad guys are in these kind of instances?
Yeah, really good question. So we know that almost everybody in Syria is a bad guy. Yeah. Hezbollah versus Hamas. Assad, who's in league with Iran and the Russians, and Hezbollah. That's pretty bad. Yeah. On the other end is Al-Qaeda and jihadists and Islamists. Really bad.
But I thought that Obama said that he has just about wiped out Al-Qaeda. They're no longer a threat, right?
Oh, they're no longer a threat, except for Northern Africa and elements in Europe and potentially elements in the United States, people reading Al-Qaeda websites. So Al-Qaeda hasn't gone anywhere, except that we've killed off a lot of its senior leadership. But it just devolves. It never was a government. It never was a unified organization. It was always small groups. And so it's a threat. So the point is, yes, there are bad guys in lots of places, potentially even in Turkey.
How do we fight an enemy when we're not allowed to call them our enemy?
Good question. So this really is a battle of ideas. We defeated to the point of actually winning and declaring victory. Remember VE Day and VJ Day. We sought victory in World War II. We didn't compromise. We didn't negotiate. There was no peace conference. We defeated the Nazis and the Japanese imperialists. We won the long twilight struggle against Soviet communism with a victory in the Cold War. The Soviets lost. We won. Are we interested in victory over radical Islamism? Only victory over radical Islamism, to the point where they withdraw their assault on the West, will give us the space to declare that we're free and safe.
Under this administration, do you see that happening?
No. And to your original question, we don't tell the truth. The Department of Defense, as you've covered and others have noted, has wiped out of our documents references to Sharia law and jihad and radical Islam and the ideology of the enemy. The enemy, of course, has an ideology. What else drives him or her, mostly hims? It's not economics. Many of the terrorists from 9/11 were doing fine economically. It's not oppression. Many of them are safely ensconced in their countries where Muslims rule. Many of them are leaders. Many of them are wealthy. So it's not victimization. It's a war of ideas. It's the third jihad we're facing, not the first, the third. The first was the Mohammedan-inspired expansion of Islam into Christian and other areas that had never before seen Islam. That's why the Muslims rule the Middle East. At the point of the sword, they took over the Middle East. The second jihad was from the year about 1100 on, hundreds of years long, pushed all the way into Europe, finally stopped in 1683 outside the gates of Vienna on 9/11. Bin Laden, Zawahiri are fighting the third jihad, the jihad that never went away, that was never formally and finally defeated, when the Arab world fell so far behind modernity and the West. It got real upset. And the only answer of the leaders in Arab villages and big Arab oil-rich states to the poverty and misery of their people, who are not free, living in democratic capitalism and liberty, is, well, it must be America's fault, Europe's fault, Israel's fault. They're fighting the third jihad, and it's going to be with us for a while.
Where do people find you? Who are you mainly writing for these days? You're all over the place.
I'm all over the place. So I'm Larry Greenfield, and I'm associated with the Claremont Institute, claremont.org, and the American Freedom Alliance, americanfreedomalliance.org. And I have a couple new ventures I'm happy to hint at. I'll be doing some work in the Jewish media, as a matter of fact. So looking at the world through a Jewish lens, but with a real friendship toward Christians and Americans and others who love freedom. And I've also started my book project. Eventually, everybody gets to write a book, right? Everybody gets their 15 minutes. And my book will be a study of first principles of the American founding as rooted in Judeo-Christian civilization. There's a real interesting debate. Was it the Enlightenment? Was it the age of reason and science and rationality? And or did the American founders look to civilization, Western thought, more generally, for the influence to the American idea of liberty and republicanism and no king shall rule here? So who knows how long that'll take? It's a big topic. So I'm writing and lecturing and busy.
All right. Thank you so much, Larry, for all you do. You're awesome.
Thank you.